Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about les verbes réfléchis, or reflexive verbs. So basically these are things you do to yourself. So like I wash myself, I wake up, I dress myself, things like that. So let me write that down. Things we do to ourselves. I mean, not all of them are like this. Some of them end up being idiomatic and not entirely what we would have expected to be reflexive, but for the most part, they're fairly straightforward. So we'll be talking about these, the standard kind. So the main difference between these and regular verbs is that they've got this reflexive pronoun in the beginning. So to show you what I mean, we're going to conjugate one verb first, and that's going to be se laver, to wash oneself. So you can see that in addition to the normal infinitive part, we've got this pronoun, and that also changes as we conjugate the verb proper. So let's go ahead and do that. Je, tu, il, nous, vous, and ils. Okay, so let me change colors. Alright, so for je, we're going to conjugate laver like we would any normal er ending verb. So that's lave. And then the se for je changes to me. For tu, we're going to make this lave with an s as usual, and the se becomes te. Tu te laves, you wash yourself. For il, the se stays the same, and then we conjugate laver. Il se lave, he washes himself. Nous, nous lavons. So the se becomes nous. For vous, the se becomes vous, so it's vous vous lavez. You wash yourself. And il, the se stays the same, and we get ils se lavent. They wash themselves. So as you can see, in addition to conjugating the verb, we also kind of have to conjugate this pronoun, so it changes with our subject. But it's fairly straightforward. That's really all there is to it. So let's go ahead and do some examples. So when I've seen these reflexive verbs done in textbooks, they generally tend to be done in the context of la routine quotidienne, or your daily routine. So like things you do every day, get up, brush your teeth, stuff like that. So for that purpose, we're going to be talking about Stéphane's daily routine. So at 7 o'clock in the morning, Stéphane wakes up. Oh, that's too light, isn't it? Let's find a better color. Okay. Il se lève. He gets up, and that's the verb se lever. Okay. 7:15 we'll say. He brushes his teeth. Il se brosse les dents. And that's the verb se brosser, to brush. Okay, alright, then he washes himself. We just did that one. Il se lave. And that's the verb se laver, which we did above. Okay. Alright, then he dresses himself. Il s'habille. And that's the verb s'habiller. So note the S apostrophe because the H isn't pronounced and it's kind of treated as a vowel, so we go S apostrophe. Okay, so 7:30, Stéphane isn't out the door yet. He is hurrying. Il se dépêche. That's the verb se dépêcher. Okay. So after coming home from school or whatever, he goes for a walk. Il se promène. And that's the verb se promener. Okay. And then after doing his homework and whatnot, he's ready to go to bed at 10:30. Il se couche. And that's the verb se coucher, to go to bed. Alright, so now that we've done some examples, let's talk about some other more complicated grammatical things. Okay, so first up, negation. Oh, that's weird. How about now? Alright, negation. So how do we negate reflexive verbs? Alright, so let's look at one of the sentences we did. Il se dépêche, for example. Il se dépêche. Okay, so, oh, I made a mistake up there, didn't I? Right, this is not ENT, it's just E, because we're not talking about il, as in the plural, just singular. Right, so back to negation. Il se dépêche. He hurries. So say for once he was on time and he doesn't need to. Our question is, where does the ne and the pas go? Since this really has two parts, does it go around the whole thing or just one? The answer to that is the whole thing. So if he doesn't need to hurry up, we'll say il ne se dépêche pas. So we have the ne and the pas going around the entire part of the reflexive verb. Okay, so that's negation. Next up is the near future. So just as we might normally say, I don't know, je vais parler, I will speak. If we want to say I will wash myself, then that becomes je vais me laver. So the whole reflexive part of the verb goes after the conjugation of aller. It's not like it gets split around it or something. But this is the important part. So it's the infinitive, except we have to change the pronoun to correspond to whatever the subject is in the situation. So we'll do another example just to make it clear. Tu te couches. You sleep. Now if you want to say you will sleep, what does this become? Tu vas te coucher. You will sleep. So note that the se has changed to te in this case, just as it did when we conjugated it in the regular present tense. Okay, and we have one last thing to go over, and that is the imperative. So there are two ways of doing this based on whether we mean affirmative or negative. So this is affirmative, and this column's for negative. All right. So, alright. So say we have the verb, oops, let's fix that, se réveiller. So how do we make this imperative? So say we want to say, you get up, and in this case we're talking about tu, let's say. So we're going to conjugate this the way we normally would for an er ending verb in the imperative tense, and that's by putting it in the tu form and then dropping the s. But now what happens with this pronoun? Well, for tu it becomes te, but it's not te réveille. We take the te and then it becomes, well, we make it toi and move it to the other side. So it's réveille-toi. And if we wanted it to be for vous, we would say, oops, réveillez-vous. So that's fairly straightforward. Now for the negative, we don't do any of this order switching business. We literally take a ne and a pas and put it around the verb. Ne te réveille pas. That's it. So we would conjugate the verb as however we want, stick a ne and a pas around it, and we're done. Alright everybody, that's everything for today. So yeah, reflexive verbs. See you in the next video.